Hey y'all, it's Celt. Let's talk about the judge in the Trump criminal case. Roll clip.
Well, hello again, America. I bet y'all didn't know this. Turns out the daughter of the judge that's going to be overseeing Donald Trump's case, she worked on the Biden-Harris campaign. Well, that seems like a little bit of a conflict of interest, doesn't it? And then there's this.
The judge that presided over that case where the Trump family was found guilty is the same judge presiding over Donald Trump's 30 counts.
What is that look on her face? That's an adult. She's supposed to be an attorney. But she seems pretty giddy at the fact that the district attorney, a Democrat, who campaigned on getting rid of Donald Trump, has put this trial into the right court with the right judge whose daughter worked on that campaign of the man that Donald Trump will most likely be running against here next year for the presidency. And these are the folks that talk about fascism and the rule of law and the abuse of power. Really.
So there's one thing that he forgot to mention in that video, and that's the judge that's over the Trump case also donated a $15 contribution to Biden's campaign. You heard that right. $15, such a dastardly deed that it was even covered by Fox News. This is the level of idiocracy that they are reaching at to defend Trump. As soon as Trump was indicted, the right-wing propaganda arm started to come out and attacks against the judge in full force. Trump's son shared a picture of the judge's daughter all over Twitter in reference to the daughter working on the Biden campaign. And like I said earlier, Fox News even came out and wrote entire articles talking about the judge's political contributions to the Biden campaign. $15. The problem is, while all of this is true, the judge's daughter did work for the Biden campaign. This judge has heard a case involving Donald Trump previously, and he did donate $15 to Biden's campaign. It changes nothing about the judge's worthiness and fitness to handle this case. There is nothing that says that judges in their personal life have to remain apolitical. And while they do have to remain apolitical and unbiased while on the bench, while they're off the bench, they're able to do things politically, such as donate to political campaigns and vote. The political affiliation of judges is usually a matter of public record. Look at the Supreme Court. We know there's conservative Republican judges and liberal Democrat judges. And a lot of this is due to the fact that a lot of judge positions are appointed. A Republican or Democrat governor or president puts you in that spot. If we use the idea that a judge's political affiliation should dictate what cases they're allowed to hear, we're going to have a serious issue in this country. Because if that's the case, do we look at a Republican-appointed judge and tell them that they can't rule on something that the Biden administration has put in place? Because if that's how we're doing this, then some Supreme Court justices need to step away from the Biden student loan forgiveness case because they were put into office by a Republican. But if you suggested that to most Republicans, many of them will tell you that that's just silly. Those justices should be able to hear that case without their political bias interfering with the matters of law. What Trump and his supporters are doing is the equivalent of somebody getting a drug charge, asking the judge who they voted for, and then claiming an unfair bias because they voted for the opposite party of what the defendant voted for. If someone like me or you did that in a courtroom, we would either be laughed at by the judge or held in contempt of court. But because Trump is who Trump is, him and his supporters think that he deserves special privileges that me and you would never get. But even with all that, the judge donated $15 to Biden's campaign. It's the daughter who worked for Biden's campaign, not the judge, and that's important. The Republican Party loves to focus on the idea that a child's action is the same as a parent's action. You want further proof of that? Just look at how they comment about Hunter Biden. We know that Hunter Biden fights with addiction. He's been very open about that. But the Republican Party acts like it's Joe Biden that's fighting the addiction. But it's not Joe Biden that's fighting the addiction, just like it's not the judge who worked on the Biden campaign. It's the judge's child. But this doesn't stop the Trump boys from sharing the picture of the judge's daughter talking about how she worked for the Biden campaign when they know the judge and his family are already receiving death threats. The death threats have become so intense and so frequent that the judge and his family were provided a security detail for their safety. None of this has stopped Trump from going on his website, True Social, and posting things such as World War III that he posted on Easter Sunday with no other context. His original double post about his indictment weeks ago called for people to take their country back, echoing the same calls for violence that he did for January 6th. This isn't considered intimidation tactics against a judge and possible witnesses. I couldn't tell you what else could be. But finally, it is true that this judge sat over another case that involved Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. But that changes nothing. Judges can and will sit over multiple cases that involve the same defendant and possibly the same victim. That is completely normal within our court system. That is such a normal thing in our country that we've turned it into a TV and movie trope in which a judge recognizes the defendant and asks them what they're doing back in their courtroom. And again, if this was me or you in a criminal case going before a judge that's heard another criminal case from us, no one would bat an eye. No one would think that we need to find a new judge because you've already judged this person before. There's no way that someone going for their second strike on drug crimes could look at a judge and say, I've already had you as a judge once, I want a new judge, and that actually happened. Again, you would be laughed at by that courtroom, and if you made too much of a fuss about it, you'd be held in contempt of court. So every piece of propaganda they've put against this judge in the Donald Trump case is something that just happens in American society. Judges do hold their own political affiliation. The actions of their children are not the actions of the judge, and the judge can hear more than one case with the same defendant. This just happens. There are major issues with the criminal justice system in the United States, especially our court system, and there is need for criminal justice reform in this country. But none of the stuff that's being brought up about this judge is on that list whatsoever. I'll have to do another video on this later, but it is very interesting that when liberals and leftists bring up the inequalities within our criminal justice system, especially our court system, Republicans tell us that the system works until it's someone that they like.